Characters. Who are they? What are they? Who will they become? So much goes into the creation of a character, their backstory, culture, beliefs, image, eye color, description, personalities, and so much more. As readers, we only get a glimpse of what truly goes into each character. So grab a beverage and get comfortable as we explore this episode's character in depth with your host, Madilynn Dale. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Character Driven. I have a fantastic guest with a fantastic character that we're going to be chatting about tonight. It's in one of my favorite genres for reading. So we're going to bring in this author and let her introduce this character before I give any more away.
Hi. So my name is Deborah Jarvis. I'm going to be talking about Sasha Wellington. She's the main character of my novel, Wolves Running, and she is a shapeshifter. The story is not exactly like your regular shapeshifter stories out there with alphas and the whole pack structure. There is a pack structure, but it's much more based around the way wolves actually have a pack and the way the family unit of the wolf tribe or wolf pack actually does work. So Sasha is about 34 years old. She was brought up in a pack or a clan up in Wyoming, and she ended up moving to Boulder, Colorado to go to college and ended up staying there. So as shapeshifters, they're not out in the open. They were just revealed to the public, but most of them have not identified themselves to everyone else as shapeshifters. So they're still hiding their identities. So Sasha is a biology teacher at Viceroy High School, which is not a real high school in Boulder, but it is kind of modeled on one of them. And she's been there working there for 10 years, has made a lot of friends, has got a good connection with the students, and is friends with one of the other shapeshifters, the only other one that she knows about in the school, who is a Raven clan. So she's one of the Ravens. So Sasha has a lot going on, and she ends up meeting up with one of her students, regularly to watch anime. And the story starts off with her discovering that maybe he's not as human as she thought.
Ooh. So there's kind of that mystery there. I like that. Yes. I do want to kind of pick at her backstory. What made her stay in Boulder after college?
She ended up making friends there. And I think, since some of them do leave their clans, they are trying to be part of the rest of the world. She just felt comfortable there and decided that it would be, to her advantage to actually stay. So she's one of the more sociable of the wolves. And she still keeps very close touch with her family, goes back to the family home on a regular basis. Even has up to this point had a human boyfriend that she lives with. And she just really likes the teaching aspect. This is her life. She really likes it.
I like that she branched out. Did she have any issues with her family with wanting to stay?
They are a little twitchy sometimes about her staying in the city, but her uncle also does business in the city. He runs a real estate agency, of all things, but that's what his family, that part of the family does. They're into land and they're into property. So he lives in the city part of the time too. So it's not like she's totally disconnected from her family.
She is a wolf shifter, right?
Yes.
I think. Okay. And then we have the raven shifter, who is her friend.
Mm-hmm.
What other types of shifters do you have in her world?
So as the story goes along, you find out that there's pretty much any kind of animal that you can imagine, other than insects. I don't think there are insects, but it does say in there that sometimes there's, they've found that even some fish ended up in the shapeshifter clans. Ooh. So pretty much you do run into anything in the area that you would find in that natural area. So, we're looking at Boulder, Colorado. So you would end up finding everything from, cougars to, pronghorn antelopes. I know bighorn sheeps aren't exactly in that area, but they're not too far out of the range. They're up in the mountains. So all of those animals that are likely to be in that area do show up throughout the story in one way or another.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get the inspiration for her?
Okay, so the story behind this, I had written part of another story, and that one is going to get finished, and it's about a horse shapeshifter. So that one I started a while ago, but I couldn't figure out what I was going to do to finish it. And I was on school vacation. It was during lockdown with COVID. I was home teaching from home, and I had a little bit more time, and it was Christmas vacation. And I had a dream one night, and it was just really bizarre. And I'm dreaming that, here I am as this shapeshifter who's living in the city, and all of a sudden one of her friends ends up, being possibly another shifter, and she has to deal with that. And I mean, it was kind of a fragmented dream, but I woke up and I started typing it because I'm like, I'm just going to see where this goes. And by the time I knew it, 2.5 months had gone by, and I suddenly have this novel that I wasn't expecting to write. And it did answer the question of how to finish the other book, because now I know, the very beginning, the first line is, the secret was out. Sam Winston and his colleagues had revealed the existence of shapeshifters to the world. So I now know where the story is going to go for the other one, and can get that one finished. So that actually was kind of a bonus for this, because I now know what I can do. But it just kind of went from there. And I'm like, well, I teach English. I don't want to write an English teacher, but I've got a background in biology. Let's see what we can do with that. So I got to play around with the characters a little bit more.
Sweet. So she has a student that she goes and watches anime with on a regular basis, you said?
Well, yep. He was, when she was doing her student teaching, he was a senior at the school that she was doing her student teaching with, and he went off to college, but they kept in touch. They were both into anime and gaming and things like that. So they kept in touch. And over time, when he graduated, he came back and he ended up going over just to watch anime together. And that they've just been anime buddies for 7 or 8 years. So just kind of a fun friendship.
Friendship they have, these two, and she doesn't think he's human. Does she hint? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, that happens pretty much at the very beginning of the book. And they're having one of their anime nights, and they've ordered sushi, and they're watching Gun Gale online, and just having a really good time. And that was the series I was watching at the time. So I was like, okay, we're going to put this into the storyline, just because it was fun. And all of a sudden, he looks like he's not feeling well, and he gets up and he leaves. And she's like, "This is really strange. I don't know what's going on." And she follows him out, and she catches in the hallway of the apartment building, she catches something that smells kind of odd, and she's like, "Yeah, that's not his normal scent," because her senses are heightened even in human form to some extent. And she's like, "That doesn't smell like him. Oh crap!" And so she ends up following him, because this is, he's a little old for this. He hasn't had any training. There's been nobody to teach him. This is what this means. This is how you're going to have to go through this. And there's all sorts of rumors all over the internet. And she's like, I don't want him to have to just find this out by himself. I'm going to have to go and find him.
Oh, man. So does she step into the role of mentor for him then with this?
She does, and it evolves into something more.
Cool. That's very fun. So does romance come to play with this a little bit?
Romance definitely comes to play with this. They do end up, she does have to break up with her current boyfriend, which she was already in the process of thinking about anyway, because he's one of the ones who's making anti-shapeshifter commentary. And she's like, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
This is not going to work. His friends are pretty much going, this. So she's already accepted the fact that this is going to end, and this just kind of provides a little bit more of an impetus for her to break it off. And that ends up going, it is, and it ends up going very badly over the course, and he ends up the ex-boyfriend ends up as with one of the main antagonists.
Ooh. So what are some of the issues that arise for her as she guides her friend along this new path that's kind of presented itself?
Well, she has to teach him, and she was on the verge, right, being at Christmas break. I said it at her Christmas break, because that's where I was. And she's on the verge of about to go home for her family's New Year's celebration. She's like, well, you're going with me. And, you now know that you are a shapeshifter. You're going to have to go back to my family and we're going to teach you what you're doing. And he is also a wolf shapeshifter. So they're going to have to bring him back. But she's got to teach him about what it's all about. Try and keep him from some of the pitfalls. There's kind of another character who is at the party who tries to seduce him, and it doesn't go very well. So there's other things that come into play, and she has to teach him how to be a shapeshifter. And this poor character who's almost 30 years old, he's a little bit late for the program of becoming a shapeshifter and trying, for the first time. It's really hard for him to wrap his mind around it because he wasn't raised in the culture.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite scenes that you wrote for her?
So some of the favorite scenes that I wrote, definitely the opening sequence where she realizes something's going on and she has to track him down to where he's hiding and convince him that he's not going to turn into a horrible monster and eat her, and that he's, this is a normal thing and that he needs to trust her and then go home with her after they've resolved that issue. So that one really works well, and I really enjoy that. There's a couple of other scenes later in the book. The ending ended up getting scrapped completely in August of this year. Before I was planning on publishing in September, it didn't come out till November. I ended up scrapping the entire end, the last chapter, and rewriting the entire thing. So it just wasn't working. I had to go back. I had to fix it. And then it actually works really well now. So that end sequence where they're having that final confrontation, and I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't want to spoil how that works, but where they're having that final confrontation and they have to, the whole family at that point has to protect themselves from these characters who have come after them. That actually went very, very well. A lot of the sequences in the house, the book itself, when you see the word house, it's capitalized, and that's her family house, and it's always for some reason capitalized. Yeah. So it's just something that happened along the way. So a lot of the sequences in the house are really fun, and there's a deleted set of 5 chapters that I pulled from the book that I'm actually putting out as a side story. For those who get onto my newsletter, I actually have that set up on a book funnel. So that's really fun. Yeah. So that's called the Montana story. And that's actually traveling out to go and meet the horse shapeshifter and his family and trying to work on some interspecies relationships that had been struggling to be achieved.
With their culture, the wolf shifters and everything, what is a typical age the shift it happens for them?
So typically it happens around puberty, so around 10, 11, 12, but there are some late bloomers, obviously, and John is one of them, the main male there.
So was there anything that kind of played into his delay?
It just happened. Apparently late bloomers happen. Sometimes the traits aren't even inherited. So he was adopted. His parents had no idea that he had these traits. So it was kind of a surprise to everybody.
That's another little fun bit about learning you're a shifter in your 30s. I like it. On her background, because they have these people come after them, does Wolf Clan ever, do they work on training their people how to fight or anything? Or
there's definitely that. They do spend time in wolf form and they do learn how to be basically wolves. They do have that ability. So there's several sequences where they're running in the woods and they're doing hunting and they're, so they are trained to work as actual wolves, as if that was their normal shape. It's their other normal shape, but yes. So there is training on how to behave, how to interact as a member of the pack, and how to defend oneself, definitely.
Ooh, I like it. So she's kind of almost like a fighter in disguise in a way. She knows how to handle herself, defend herself in difficult, dangerous situations. She can protect herself.
Yes.
Ooh. What is it like for her when she has to teach her friend how to do some of those things?
So it's funny. One of the things that is the problem. The first time he shapeshifts, he still has his clothes on, and she's like, "Don't move. You're not going to be able. I mean, we're not going to." She's not going to be like, "Take your clothes off before you shapeshift." But when they do get to the house, she does have to train him how to control the ability to shapeshift, and he doesn't think in terms of the wolves the way she does. He doesn't think, oh, I'm a wolf. Oh, this is the way it is. And one of the things that she has to help him overcome is the fact that wolves don't wear clothes. And the sequence where he transforms for the first time, she steps out of the room to give him the privacy. And he's hiding behind the pots in the conservatory, and he won't come out because he's concerned about the fact that he's naked and he's just not comfortable with this whole idea. So she has to be able to talk him through, okay, this is what this is normally. This is what this is. This is how you do this. This is what, smelling that smell is. This is how you, track through the forest, and just how things work. And it's hard for her because she's grown up with it. And she's like, totally, it never even dawned on her, oh, he's been human or thought he was human for almost 30 years. He might not quite get the concept. Wolves don't wear clothes or, things like that, the hunting and whatnot.
So he's behind the pot in his wolf form?
Yes, he's behind the pots in the wolf form, and he's got his tail tucked down as far as he can. And he's cowering, and every time she tries to walk around the pots, he goes the other way. He tries to stay away from him, and she's like, what are you doing? What is going on with you? Why? Oh, yeah, about that.
Oh my gosh. So I have to ask too, how do they communicate in their wolf forms? Are they able to communicate with each other, or is it telepathic?
They can't talk, and there's no telepathy, so that isn't part of it. But there is body language that wolves understand, and he does learn to read the body language. And I mean, they can kind of point with the nose or nudge that way, so to try to keep it as close to the abilities of an animal that would be, logic for that. So they still have their human minds in wolf form, so they can still find ways to communicate, but at the same time, they're limited. So they have to rely on actual signals that they would be able to recognize.
That makes that scene even funnier. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can just imagine it, just like playing tag almost around this big potted plant. And she's like, what's happening right now? So I hope they discuss it after he's able to shift back.
Oh, yeah.
Does he have trouble going back and forth at first?
It does take a little bit of work. He has to calm down after the first time and be like relaxed enough to shift back. And he does accomplish it and just falls apart on her that first time, because this is totally beyond him. He just is, what the heck is going on in my life? But he does get better at it, and he does start to understand a lot about it. And, but he's still, throughout the book and throughout the little side story too, he still is bringing that human perspective to being a wolf. And, she comments at one point, he's the most unwolf-like wolf we've ever known, because he was raised human, never had any inkling that there was anything else. And this is just totally foreign to him. So her job is to keep everybody else safe, because he's not going to know what to do or what not to do.
That sucks. But I mean, at least she's there and he's not alone. So there's the silver lining.
Yeah.
Is there anything she takes away from having to help him in this process?
Well, I mean, she does take away the fact that, and her mother does say to her, you realize that he likes you. And the reason that he even came out here this weekend is because he trusts you. And you might want to think about that. And she's just totally poleaxed. Because this is the furthest thing from her mind. She's like, wait, he likes me? What do you mean he likes me? What? Because in her mind, he was, at the school, and she was a student teacher, so not really his teacher. And they're close of an age. They're only a couple of years apart. But in the back of her mind, he was always in a different category. It wasn't something that she'd even conceived. But they're best friends.
Yeah.
So it kind of, mentally, she kind of she thinks about it for a while, and she's like, yeah, I do kind of like him. Crap. And it kind of evolves from there.
That's too cute. Oh, I love it. So there's a small little age gap between the two, and just how does he work past the awkwardness of like realizing that?
There's a lot of discussions. The character who's like chasing him ends up sneaking into his bedroom one of the nights, and he ends up coming into Sasha's room, but falling asleep on the floor in wolf form because he didn't want to bother her or anything, but he's terrified of like this other girl chasing after him. And, so they have to talk about it. They do end up having a conversation as to what it all means and, if this is actually something between us.
Ooh.
How does this work? How is this going to work for, in that term, us as a character, her saying to him, how is this going to work for us?
Awesome. Besides the anime, do they like before it comes out that he's crushing on her and stuff, do they do anything else together? Or is it strictly just like
it's been pretty much eat Japanese food, watch anime, occasionally get together outside of it, but that's been they're pretty much their whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's still one of those things. They get together once or so a week, a couple of times a month and, hang out, and they really enjoy each other's company. And that's what they do. Yeah. But he doesn't fit in with the crew that she hangs around with for the most part. He's just, he's more nerdy than I guess some of the others, because the guy that she has been dating up to this point, Rich, he's, a typical business guy, and he and his friends like to watch football on the weekends. And she's not a huge football fan, but she'll watch it with him and, sit and eat pizza and talk with some of the other people that are there. And one of whom she does continue to be friends with, but the others kind of get off to the side. Yeah. So it's just he wasn't fitting in. He didn't fit in with that particular crew that she was with. So it was just kind of, her friend who came over and, watched anime.
Nice.
So her uncle finds them a place to stay in Boulder that was owned by the property company, and she's going to end up buying it, so that's fine. But her brothers, when she does decide she's going to move out, and there's a confrontation that she has with Rich, and she storms off and goes and stays over at her friend the Raven's house that night. Mm-hmm. She calls her brothers and she's like, okay, well, we've already planned to go looking for this place that our uncle is setting up for her. And her brothers are like, yep, we're on this. We've been waiting for this. Let's go. And they all go over, get her stuff and move her out. Well, while Rich is at work. And
yes.
one of the funny things is that, she was talking about before she had the scene where they fought. She was looking at the life that she had built and was kind of sad about it because she had had a fairly decent relationship with Rich up to that point. He was a pretty decent character. She didn't feel poorly about him. And she was looking around their bedroom and said, and that the painting that he had taken, it was a crappy landscape painting, and he'd painted a Godzilla on it. And it was like her favorite painting in the world. And she's moving out and she's like, screw it. And she takes a painting with her when she leaves.
Oh my gosh. That is too funny.
That becomes a bone of contention later. It's like, you even took the Godzilla painting. So, yeah.
I mean, obviously it was for her, right? So why not? So she goes from living with the ex to like living with the friend to kind of help him like transition and also stay safe.
Right.
Does X like try to like hunt her down at some point to try to get her back?
She refuses to answer the phone calls, and he shows up outside her school by her car. And this is another of those scenes that's just absolutely fantastic because they have one of the gym teachers who's very protective of the female staff, and his nickname is Arnold because he's a wrestling coach, and he's just the big burly guy, nice guy. Yeah. And they're like, we should go talk to Arnold. So they end up going down and getting him to go out. And when she goes out to her car and Rich starts pushing her around, and starting to demand that they're still together. And what do you mean you're moving out? And what's going on with this? And, the gym teacher, wrestling coach, comes over. I'm sorry, is there a problem here? And it just he manages to kind of drive off Rich for that period of time. And
so she keeps it, and she still is like able to keep her shifting abilities hidden then. So
yeah, because she, she doesn't have to. it's more, I think they say at one point, as long as you change periodically over the course of the month, it's not going to sneak up on you. But the wolf does need its time too.
Yeah, gotta have its freedom for a little bit. I like that you tied that in there, because it's almost like it's part of them, but not them. If that kind of seems.
Well, it is them, so it's not a separate entity the way I've seen it done in some things. So they're like, it's its own thing. It kind of has its own senses, but it's still them.
Yeah, yes. And I like it. Those shifters like that are the ones that I love. Like, not to say this is like that other shifters are not like good.
Right, these different ways of writing shifters. And I've seen it done. I think Patricia Briggs does some really cool stuff where there is the kind of the other side of the personality that is its own entity. That's the wolf in the werewolves. But in this case, it's just the wolf has a little bit more understanding of the world. So they do kind of say, okay, well, it's the same thing, but it's the other side of our personality, but it's not a separate.
Yeah.
We don't have conversations with it. It's just part of us.
Yeah. Yes. It's so hard to portray that too. Like for someone that's not, like someone that doesn't read a lot of shifter stories, like they just don't, it doesn't make sense. So, but if you do, you're like, yes, I know this. So, one more question.
Sure.
What is your favorite quirk that she has?
That's an interesting question. I think the part of her that makes her intriguing through the story is that she really does want to see the best in people. Even when Rich kind of slips his clutch a little bit more later on and he kind of goes off the deep end, because he does. I think, there's still a part of her that feels like, I feel bad about this. I really wish that this hadn't happened. So she does maintain a sense of understanding why it might be an issue, for her. I don't know if that specifically is a quirk, but it definitely has. It's part of her personality.
Yeah. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for coming on Character Driven again.
Very welcome. It's been fun. I really like talking about this book and talking about these characters.
Go ahead and tell our viewers and listeners where they can find you in this wonderful book.
Okay, but the book is available on Amazon. It's also through Barnes & Noble and through most of the other major realtors. And we will be, or retailers, not realtors, boy, okay. And we will be doing an audiobook of this sometime in the near future.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. Oh, let me get tongue-tied. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when we go live again. Go Indie Now's got a ton of stuff coming up. And remember, it's always time to go Indie Now.
On our game when a sound caught my ears. Nodding to John, I bounded towards our neighborhood and looked at the street from behind a screen of brush. Several police cars were parked across from our house, and the wind carried the distraught wails of a woman standing in the snow, pleading with the officers to find something. The man standing next to her was dressed for the weather and sounded desperate as he spoke to the policeman. It took me only a minute or so to understand what had happened. They had been watching TV and had thought their child was safe in bed. When they went upstairs to check on her, they found their little girl was not there. A frantic search of the house led to the discovery of the unlocked kitchen door, and the parents had gone hunting for her after calling the police. Their hunt had turned up nothing, and we were almost overpowered by the scent of their fear coupled with the fumes from the cars. If the child was going anywhere, my guess would be the park. According to Google Earth, there's a path at the end of the cul-de-sac. She could have cut into the woods from there. That's where we'll head. Be careful not to be seen. Shifting back, my nose was assaulted by the smell of exhaust once more. I focused in on the parents' scent, registering it, and then turned and raced towards the woods. John at my heels. I thought I caught a faint whiff of something in the air that was similar to the parents, though not exactly the same, but it was gone before I could pinpoint a direction. I whined at John, and we trotted through the hock-deep snow, peering through the wind-lashed curtains of swirling white. In the darkness ahead, we could see the officers' bright searchlights, and we swung out away from the voices of the police. I smelled a hint of the scent again and cast about, trying to follow it. John had angled further to the north than I, swerving towards the lake. I caught up to him just as he put a foot into the water, breaking the fragile ice. We looked at each other with alarm, hoping that the much lighter child hadn't stumbled onto it and fallen through.